Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. Well, have you experienced dishonesty or infidelity in your relationship? If so, you know how devastating and painful it can be. So here to share tips on how to forgive your partner, we welcome back couples therapist Megan Meganson. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
This topic is a big one, forgiveness, because we're talking not just infidelity and what levels of that is for couples, but even being dishonest. Forgiveness is huge.
Forgiveness is a really big deal, and it is very hard to achieve.
Yeah, so let's take us through the beginning steps. So for infidelity,
yes.
First you're saying it's the conversations you need to have to make sure you both agree on what infidelity is in your relationship.
Yeah, that is so true. I think most couples get married with the assumption that having a sexual or an emotional connection with someone else is off limits. But a problem happens when people don't have explicit conversations about what the contract of their relationship is going to be. Another problem happens when we don't check in with each other over time. People change, our relationship changes, our needs change within the relationship. And if we're not constantly checking in on that, chances are at some point in the relationship, a betrayal or a deception can happen.
But that's a really hard conversation to have, because what do you say? Like one night you're over dinner and you're like, so what's cheating in your mind? 'Cause it's like ding, ding, ding. I mean, what's going
Definitely
on?
red flag.
Right.
You know, it is hard, and you just have to bite the bullet and do it anyways. There's no way to soften this conversation. I love people who have a couples therapist that they check in with, you know, once a year, once every quarter. Having a space where you can go with a third party to help you navigate these conversations can be extremely helpful.
So talk us through what you talk to with your couples as far as when they come in and one's cross the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So infidelity, when we're working with it in a therapeutic setting, really is healed in stages. So the first stage of the work around infidelity is what I call the crisis stage. After the revelation of infidelity, your whole life feels like it's been turned upside down. I grew up in Southeast Texas, so I lived through a lot of hurricanes. And what it always reminds me of is that moment when you step out of your door after a natural disaster and you just assess the damage. Everything looks terrible. You can't imagine how things are possibly going to be repaired. Forgiveness does not happen in this stage of infidelity. The purpose of the work right now is to stop the bleeding. So stop the damage, get everything under control, and then we can move on to phase 2, which is where more of the forgiveness work starts to happen.
So talk about that. How do you repair the damage? How do you even assess?
Yes, in the crisis phase, yeah. So really we want to just listen. The crisis phase is all about listening to the person who's been deceived, understanding how they've been hurt by this betrayal, what kind of fears and insecurities are coming up for them right now, and also understanding how the person who's had the affair is feeling impacted. Oftentimes they're feeling ashamed, guilty. Both partners are going through a very difficult emotional experience. So we just want to listen and understand.
And forgiveness is possible then, moving to that second step.
Absolutely. Forgiveness is possible. In fact, the research shows us that there's a 1/3 split in couples who experience infidelity. 1/3 of couples forgive and move on, but don't do anything to improve their relationship, which means the likelihood of it happening again is very high. Another third choose to end their relationship or divorce, and the final third choose to commit to the hard work of couples therapy, and if they do that, their relationship can be incredibly just stronger and more meaningful on the other side of this betrayal.
So what do you need to do if you've worked past, okay, this happened, I'm willing to deal with it? How do you possibly talk yourself through that?
Yes, so that moves into the second phase of the work, which is all about insight and empathy. So we want to explore what made your relationship vulnerable to this betrayal in the first place. And as we're doing this, we want to develop a lot of empathy for the pain that both partners have been feeling, what needs haven't been met, and how they're feeling at this point in the relationship. The number one most important thing if we're trying to heal and forgive is remorse. So it's vital that the person who had the affair be able to access genuine remorse and express that to the partner who's been deceived. If that happens, then the partner who's been deceived is able to open up and really understand the perspective of the other person and meet them with compassion as well. That's where forgiveness really blossoms, is in empathy and compassion.
Even when this comes to dishonesty, right? And
Yeah.
maybe not even cheating on another
Yes.
person, but cheating in general, whether it comes to money or something else. How do you build trust again?
Yeah, it comes back to remorse, empathy, and compassion. If I can show you remorse, that I genuinely feel bad, that I understand how my deceitfulness or my dishonesty has impacted you, that's going to help you feel a little bit closer, a little more trustworthy with me. At that point, it's all about empathy, using those very human skills of understanding how I'm feeling, how you're feeling, and having compassion for each other in that space. There's also a step that comes after that of rebuilding trust. And that's that third phase of the work, where we want to create a new relationship. And as we're creating this new relationship, we really want to work hard to be clear about what my needs are and what my expectations are for myself and for you in the relationship. That way, boundaries are much less likely to be crossed.
Is it an okay time to make demands? So, hey, I don't want you on Facebook. I don't want you on doing this. Is that okay to do, to make those demands on the other person and to accept those demands if you're the person who's done it?
I think it's important to really explore the underlying meaning of those things, because chances are it's not actually about Facebook. It's about the fear that you feel about your partner connecting with somebody on Facebook. So if you get into a habit where you're just making demands on your partner left and right, that's most likely going to lead to more disconnection and more conflict. But if we can really talk about the fears that we have and what we need to feel safer, then it becomes clearer what steps we need to take to rebuild that trust.
Any deal breaker?
Oh, goodness, any deal breaker. That's so individual, what a deal breaker might be. But if you have a deal breaker, then you absolutely need to put that on the table. If your partner's not willing to meet that demand or that request, then you might need to have a conversation about ending the relationship. And that's also okay. If you can get to this point in the process where you have compassion for each other and you're talking about needs and expectations, and you realize that you can't meet each other's expectations, a separation and divorce is going to be so much more amicable and loving than a divorce that happens right after the crisis of infidelity or dishonesty.
You always have great information. Thank you so much.
You're
Great
so
job.
welcome.
All right, we'll have more information about Megan and her tips on our website at KATU.com. Coming up, are you itching and sneezing like crazy? Well, we have holistic allergy remedies that work. Yes, that's next.